Kevin, my family is doing dinner and a movie without me, and they're watching Star Wars.
That is most excellent of them. Hopefully they'll let you catch up.
Not like I haven't seen it before, though.
All right, we'll go ahead and start the meeting. We'll call to order the regular meeting of the Prairie Municipal Authority, May 4th, 2020 at 6:15. Roll call, Dixie, please.
Adjourn.
Here.
Bond.
Here.
Dilbeck.
Here.
Ahern.
Here.
Marshall.
Here.
White.
Here.
Morrill.
Here.
Wines. I can see you, so I know you're here.
I'm here.
Streller.
Here. I do declare a quorum. If y'all would join me in a prayer real quick. Dear Heavenly Father, I just want to say thank you for this evening. Thank you for the opportunity for us to still be able to join together, even though the situation that has been placed before us, you always continue to give us a way to get business done, and you open our minds and lead us through this every time. And Lord, I'm so thankful for all of this. I just like to take a very brief moment and pray for Curtis. We all know Curtis is going to be going through a pretty trying situation in the next several days. And Lord, I just ask you to go for him and put people in his place that he needs to have this situation be successful for him. Again, we pray all this in your son's name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Yeah.
All right. Item number 1 is the consent agenda. There's one item on the PMA under the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Adjourn.
Yes.
Bond.
Yes.
Dilbeck.
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
Marshall.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Morrill.
Yes.
Wines.
Yes.
Streller.
Yes, thank you. Item number 4, comments from those assembled pertaining to the items on the PMA agenda. Seeing none, item 5, the proclamation, accommodations, reports, inquiries by the governing body. Seeing none, any new business that needs to come before the PMA this evening? Seeing none, we will move to item 7, motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second, Morrill.
Roll call, please, Dixie.
Adjourn.
Yes.
Bond.
Yes.
Dilbeck.
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
Marshall.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Morrill.
Yes.
Wines.
Yes.
Streller.
Yes. Okay, before we move into the regular meeting, somebody's making a whole lot of noise in the background. So if you guys could limit that, it'd be nice. Thank you. Dixie, are you ready?
Yes.
I want to call to order the regular meeting of the City of Perry, May 4th, year 2020 at 6:18. Roll call, please.
Adjourn.
Here.
Bond.
Here.
Dilbeck.
Here.
Ahern.
Here.
Marshall.
Here.
White.
Here.
Morrill.
Here.
Wines.
Here.
Streller.
Here. Thank you. Item number 1 is the consent agenda. There's 2 items on the consent agenda.
Motion to approve from Ahern.
Second from Wines.
Thank you.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Adjourn.
Yes.
Bond.
Yes.
Dilbeck.
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
Marshall.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Morrill.
Yes.
Wines.
Yes.
Streller.
Yes, thank you. We'll move to item 4, comments from those assembled pertaining to the items on the city agenda this evening. Seeing none, we'll move to item 5, proclamation, accommodations, reports, inquiries by the governing body. Item 6, City Manager's Report. Larry?
Thank you, Mayor. Monday, May 18th, we will reopen City Hall to the public from 8 to 4. It's Monday through Friday. That same day, the Perry Carnegie Library will partially open to the public with restrictions. Those restrictions will be placed on the city's website, the library's website, and also on our Facebook pages. The Perry Senior Citizens Center will remain closed indefinitely until the mayor gives the all clear for the most vulnerable to be able to assemble in larger groups. And I know that Michelle is looking forward to seeing her patrons again. This has been a difficult time for them and her as well. Over the weekend, we had some teams cancel for the BMAC tournament, which was scheduled May 16th and 17th. So we've canceled that tournament. And our focus is now on May 30th and 31st. And we could have canceled the whole season, but we know that there's pent-up demand for playing baseball and for tournaments to other teams from out of Perry to come and visit with BMAC. And so we're taking these tournaments one at a time, basically. Last Friday, I received a call from the owner of the new Sonic at 8th and Fur saying that construction will start this week or next week. So we're excited about that. That's going to be good progress for our community. So, Council, any questions?
Larry, I don't have a question about anything you just spoke about, but I was thinking, Mayor and Larry and the other council members, that it's been a couple of years, I think, since we have done an evaluation for you, Larry. And I believe in the contract, and Bryce, you help me if necessary, but I believe we should have been doing that every year right around this time. I'm pretty certain that we did not do that last year. And I would like to at least, I don't know if I have to make a motion, but I think that's really, really vital information for Larry, for the department heads, for the council. I don't know how many people were on that 2 years ago, but I know that one of the things that we talked about was that we wanted to collect information, like possibly through SurveyMonkey or something like that, from department heads and employees and other people that Larry works with, so that we would give a more accurate picture of how Larry's doing and some areas maybe that we need to work on. So I don't know exactly what the proper procedure is, but maybe the first thing is just for people to maybe come to some agreement that we need to do an evaluation, and then secondly, if the process that we need to move forward with. So I don't know, Mayor, if you want to take that and push that out in terms of what you think needs to happen next, or Bryce or someone.
Yeah, Bryce and I have talked about this briefly. I just want to take a minute to really let the council know the reason we didn't do that last year. We had a huge turnover on the council last year, and I didn't think it was fair for the new members of the council to evaluate Larry because they didn't really know anything about Larry. And so it wouldn't have been fair to Larry or the new council members to try to evaluate that situation. But now that you all have a year under your belt, and I think it is very vital for all of us to get that done. Like I said, Bryce and I have talked briefly about it in the last week or so. So we will get that started. Any other questions? Seeing none, we moved. Pardon?
I couldn't get off of mute fast enough. I do have a question about Sonic. Is there any update about what's going to happen with the old Sonic, since they are starting to break ground on the new one?
We've not been able to get any kind of information from them with calls to corporate. They're not returning our call. So I don't have anything right now. No.
Now I understand that it's not the same people, Larry. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
It's a different owner.
Okay. So is the Sonic owned by the Cunninghams, or the old Sonic? Is that part of that Walmart? Or maybe they're not Cunningham. I remember what the people's name are. The people that own the plaza out there. Do they own the Sonic building?
They do not.
Okay.
They do not. It's a separate deal. So.
Okay. All right. I'll get with you on that, Larry. I do have a small connection. I rent some ground from one of the Sonic people So maybe through the corporate Sonic. So I might be able to have a connection to get in somewhere there. So I'll talk to you about that later.
We would like to have an answer what they plan to do with the Perry Plaza section. Last thing we want is that building to be vacant and boarded up.
I think we'll have to continue to push them, because if you look at other towns, that has been, there are some old Sonics that are just sitting there that nothing has been done with them.
That's
Yeah,
certainly the last thing we want. Yeah.
Yeah, I do agree with that, Jamie. I've seen several around that way, and I've seen several that people have come in and utilized them for different things. But
Absolutely. Anything that we can do with that, I think we just need to make sure that we're pushing them. It's an important corner, being right there next to the school and right off the main road for us. And so I just think it's important that we don't drop that.
thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate that. Any other questions? All right, we will move on to item 7 then. Item 7 is consider award water treatment plant fencing bid to the lowest responsible bidder, Adjourn Fence, doing business as Claremore Fence, in the amount of $63,233, or take such other action on the bid as may be appropriate. Authorize the mayor to execute the public construction contract upon receipt and review by the city manager of the bonds, insurance, and power of attorney from the lowest responsible bidder. Bryce, I'm gonna let you have this because you told me today you talked to some folks about this.
Yes, we were lucky at, if you've looked at the canvas, you see that they're actually $30,000 lower than the next bid. And so we wanted to make sure that they were the best contractor, lowest and best. I spoke to Enid Higher Education, the secretary to the superintendent in Enid, used to be my executive secretary when I was city attorney of Enid. She called her departments where they had done some work and said that they were excellent and that they're having them back. I also called Bixby and found out that they were a major subcontractor in a Bixby fencing deal and were highly regarded there too. So we're getting a great price. It'll be totally bonded. If someone wants to make a motion to award the bid to them as the lowest responsible contractor, and then authorize the mayor to execute the contract after we've received the bonds, insurance, and power of attorney. Any questions?
Thank you, Bryce. We need a motion on
And
this
and,
item.
and as we remember, this does come with a $30,000 REAP grant.
Motion to approve the bid.
Where's the
Second.
remainder of the funding coming from?
Russ?
No.
We're gonna have to pull that out of our capital project dollars for the year.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we get a second?
Dilbeck, seconded.
Roll call, please.
Coldarn,
Yes.
Bond,
Yes.
Dilbeck,
Yes.
Ahern,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Morrill,
Yes.
Wines,
Yes.
Streller.
Yes, thank you. Item 8, discuss the COVID-19 pandemic and ratify the amended proclamation of the city of Perry and take other action deemed appropriate. Bryce has put this on the agenda again to talk about, the situation here in Perry and things that are going on and things that may pertain to the city of Perry. So if anyone has any discussion that they would like to give us some input on or talk about this evening, we'll be open to that. Okay. I have a couple things I'd like to talk about. Larry has mentioned that the BMAC tournament was canceled due to some teams canceling, and that actually makes me pretty happy. I personally am concerned about bringing a lot of people in our our town, bringing a lot of people into that tournament, and still trying to maintain some kind of social distancing. I'm not sure how they would do that. I talked to Russ about what they're doing out in Clinton, maybe. I just think that you get that many people in a field that there's not going to be any kind of social distancing. Part two to this is that these fields, the J. Dahlman, Mike Chambers, BMAC, those are all City of Perry facilities. And I've talked to Lee Harmon extensively, the manager out at BMAC, and what he thinks. He has some ideas, but I mean, we still got 12 or 13 kids in a dugout. We got coaches. His idea was to block off the bleachers and have the parents or grandparents or whoever wants to come, siblings, come and sit around the field in lawn chairs. The one thing I want to talk to you about is the Perry Kids program. The Perry Kids program, they're practicing now. I can't remember exactly what Lee said. They have one team per night at J. Dahlman, one at Mike Chambers, and I think he said two at BMAC. They can spread them out at two different fields. But it's still my concern when we bring all those people together and have games at the BMAC field. And I just kind of wanted to know if the council, are we ready to open our fields back up? It says in the governor's proclamation that I believe it's May 15th, the start of phase 2, that they will be organized sporting activities and facilities will be opened back up with moderate distancing. I don't know what moderate distancing means, but I as mayor would really like the input of the council. How y'all feel like we should proceed from this point with the Little League baseball program?
I've been pretty conservative with all this since the beginning. I think you know that, and I don't think we should probably do much outside the guidelines. And if we don't have sporting activities elsewhere, we probably shouldn't have them here.
Well, it says that we can open on the 15th, that they can open sporting facilities and have organized sporting activities again. But that it is so great, Derek, for me, how you do that and maintain distancing. That's my problem. You know, when you get mom and dads and not saying anything negative, seriously, but they want little Johnny to go play ball, and Johnny's not going to make that decision for himself to be in that dugout with, 11, 12, 13 other kids.
I think I'm in agreement with you.
No, I thought you were. That's what I meant. But I would like input from more than just Derek, please.
I agree. I'm kind of worried about it. I think we've got very low numbers in Oklahoma, especially this area. And if it does get in, especially in a condition of playing, that's going to just spread so quickly. And I worry about our facilities to handle it.
I'm really, go ahead.
I'm in agreement as well. I'll make it brief. I just think that it's better to be safer. Just push those dates out a little bit further than rush right in there. So I say wait as long as we can.
I think we should follow the governor guidelines that if by the 15th by phase 2 and we haven't had as many new cases or whatever that is determined, that we should continue with the plan that he has.
I think we have a lot of people working in a facility here in our town, and they're all back at work. They've been at work. I think we're going to know, there's not a bigger group of people that are together in our community than they are at that facility. And so far there are no new cases. Everyone's safe. I think we're going to continue to learn more each week on how these cases are going. I agree we should, I don't mind putting it off a couple of weeks, but I don't think that we should go and say that we're ready not to have them at all. I wouldn't be in favor of saying that we're not going to bring it back this year yet. I think we should find out a little bit more information before we would take and go that far.
I agree with that. We just need to keep reading the governor's guidelines and doing what we need to do to get back to it when we can.
I agree as well.
I think I'm sorry. I just want to say that's the problem. The problem I have is they say we can play, but it also says social distancing or moderate distancing, and that's the problem I'm having. To follow the guidelines, you can't follow both those guidelines. There's no way possible. But I agree that if we want to push it to the 15th and see where it's at, and then if we feel like we need to push it out another couple of weeks and see what happens, I'm fine with that. But I do think we should give the kids an opportunity to play ball this summer of some kind. I don't want it to be the city of Perry's fault that we didn't take the right avenues.
Yeah, and I'm definitely proud that we've kept it down to 6 here, and it stayed that way for several weeks. I mean, that's a great thing for us and the community around us. But what I did notice along those lines is the 15th is not next Friday, but the Friday after, and we won't have another meeting till the 18th. So maybe we postpone things through that weekend and all discuss, we discuss that on the next meeting and see where we think we should go from there.
I think that sounds good too. I mean, I'll agree with that. Where I'm really torn on this is, I want everybody to be safe too. And I agree with Bill that, if you have those ball games, no one's going to enforce any of that. And no one's going to make sure that everybody is so many feet apart and all that kind of stuff. The part where it comes in where I'm really torn is, my daughter played travel ball forever. And those teams, they're gung-ho about it. All year round. And they build relationships with those ballparks. And if we have a ballpark that won't allow people in, then it's going to, maybe it'll come back later, but it's going to have a pretty good impact, or at least in my opinion. So as far as the idea of, next meeting, let's talk about it and see where we're at. I think that's a pretty good plan.
I appreciate that. Was someone want to put that into a form of a motion so we can have some meat from the authority to talk to Lee and the Perry kids about that?
I have a question about Perry kids. Is that all Perry teams that is in the Perry kids, or do they play other towns? I can't remember how it is now.
That's a good point. I think
because
last
if
year
it's
my grandson went to Morrison and
that's Noble County.
It was one more. I think Glencoe, which would be out of Noble County. So
that's something to think about. Now, I understand with the tournaments, we have people coming in from all over, but with Perry kids, it's mainly people that are close by.
Yeah. Well, I personally don't want to cancel the season. I just want us to be aware as a council that what's going on is the reason I brought this up. I would be in favor of holding it to the 18th, and we could start whatever the following weekend that would be, the 24th or 25th. I don't know what that weekend is, but.
Hey, Larry, do you have a schedule of tournaments in front of you? Do we have one on the 15th scheduled, or do we have one on the 22nd through the 24th scheduled yet?
We have one on the 16th, Derek, that we just canceled, 16th and 17th.
Okay,
just canceled that one. Just canceled that one. We have the May 30th and 31st, which is still on the books. I know there's some concern about the Memorial Tournament coming up in early June. And that's certainly probably our biggest tournament. Last year we brought in 35 teams. So that would be very disappointing, not only to the community, but also to the foundation to have to cancel that.
So from what I heard, let me make sure I'm correct. Basically, all tournaments are canceled until after our next meeting.
The one, the 16th and the 17th, yes, sir.
And a lot of that came from the parents or the coaches already, right? Calling in and canceling. Because I think that's the other piece of this. I think we're going to hear from the public on, are they calling going, hey, we want to come? What's going on? Are they starting to push us like Danette's worried about and Curtis on our ball fields and us not being, open compared to others? Or are we still going to get people calling us going, hey, we're not coming? We
Well,
should probably hear more of that by our next meeting too.
yeah, there's certainly a pent-up demand to play. The parents would like to get the kids out and play ball. The kids would like to play ball as well. And also, OK Kids is going to have a big. OK Kids is also going to have a very definite idea of when everything should get back to normal. In other words, if they say it's not going to happen until June, then we're not going to have any ball until June.
Well, and the way I understand it is the tournament that we have coming up on that 16th and 17th weekend, we had 4 or 5. Didn't you, Larry? You say we had 4 or 5 teams cancel?
We had we had 2 cancels this weekend, yes, sir. So that leaves us just a few. So we decided to go ahead and cancel the whole that whole tournament for 16th and 17th.
Okay. When I talked to Lee probably a week or so ago, him and I had a discussion about how he thought he would want to handle that tournament. And he said that there was 8 tournaments in the state of Oklahoma that weekend. So I don't know what happened to those other tournaments. I don't know if they've been canceled. I don't know. This was the first news I had just now, us canceling the BMAC tournament. So anyway, why don't someone make a motion if they see it appropriate that we have a discussion on the 18th at our next meeting.
I just want to clarify one thing. You're not just talking about changing what they've already been able to establish for practicing and knowing that they're keeping social distancing and stuff like that.
Not at all, Jamie.
Okay.
Because I think they are trying to spread those teams out, like I said, different ball fields, and they have a schedule so where they practice and when they practice. It just amplifies things.
Yeah.
And you start bringing moms and dads, and everybody wanting to go see people play ball, and before long you got 300 people inside that fence out there.
I'll make the motion. Morrill.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Coldarn,
Yes.
Bond,
Yes.
Dilbeck,
Yes.
Ahern,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Morrill,
Yes.
Wines,
Yes.
Stroller.
Yes. We will move to item number, I forgot where we're at now. We on 9? Yeah, item 9.
Yep.
Consider approval of ordinance number 2020-05 of the City Council of the City of Perry, Oklahoma, amending Chapter 8, Article 4 of the Perry Municipal Code 2020 by amending of Section 8-402 entitled Definition, deleting the definition of appropriate screening and reserving the subsection providing for the amended Section 8-403 entitled Storing, Parking, or Leaving Junk Motor Vehicles or Abandoned Motor Vehicles on public or private property prohibited, and declaring a nuisance. Exceptions, providing for the deletion of the exception to the junk motor vehicle ordinance permitting such vehicles to be lawful if stored behind an appropriate screen, providing for appealer savings, codification, severability, effective date, penalty, and declaring an emergency. Mr. Bryce?
I think that Brian Henry may be on.
I'm here.
Would you like
Go
to
ahead.
speak to that?
Go ahead, Brian.
Okay. So this is coming up again. Several months ago, we had kind of just been thumbing through some older ordinances and kind of trying to identify some, I guess, I don't want to say weak points, but some areas where maybe they could look to get a little bit of improvement. And one of the ones that we found were that people were being encouraged to build a privacy fence to hide inoperable or junk motor vehicles that could create a nuisance in the back of their property. Since that time, it just kind of, whether you call it divine intervention or not, I have no idea. But for some reason, there has been an increase in complaints for that particular violation and the next one that we're going to talk about coming up quite a bit, actually, this spring and going into summer.
unless they're in a garage, or you can have them there for 30 days if you're working on the car. But we provided a section that said you can hide them behind a fence. And so, there's folks that have a number of vehicles behind their fence. And, I guess the question is that affecting the purpose of the junk motor vehicle? And that's, we want to keep our community pretty aesthetically pleasing. We don't want it to be a haven for rats and rodents. They get up inside of the in the cars that don't move and nest. Do we want that or do we not want that? Now, I laid this out for the city of Fairview too, and I'll tell you they approved it, but they did provide for an exception, and that's you could have one project car. So, if you're working on that, Corvette or that GTO or something, you could have that one. So that's kind of how they did theirs. To do that, you'd have to define, project car, and you'd have to get some kind of term that, not only for what project car is, but how long you would allow that. But this ordinance is simply, we're eliminating the appropriate screen definition, and we're eliminating the exception that you can put a junk motor car behind an appropriate screen. That's what this does currently.
Okay, I got a question for either Brian or you, Bryce. Say you have a shop on your place and you have a car, a project car or two, whatever you can have inside the shop as long as it's enclosed. Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Part two to my question, maybe it falls back under the next item on the agenda. But say you got that project car, but you got parts laying all around the outside of that shop for that car or for whatever use. Does that fall more under the next item?
I think that would fall under the next open storage provision. Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, you couldn't have transmissions and tires and pieces of car laying all over under the next ordinance, hidden behind a fence.
All right. Thank you. All right, council. Discussion.
Mr. Mayor, I've wanted this ordinance for several years, if you remember. The problem I have with it at this time, and this is just in my opinion, is I'd love to see it gone ahead and enacted with what Bryce said with the Fairview deal on having a project car. However, this community, as well as others right now in this pandemic, has been hit so hard with people that are unemployed and really struggling right now with everything else. And I know it becomes effective July 1st. I'm not sure the timing is right on this, in my opinion.
I feel the same way. My thing is, and maybe that's because I look at things through a different view, and I haven't been involved with city government very long, but, really, I wish there was a way I could really compare it apples to oranges of how many people would like to see this pass and how many wouldn't. Because in my view, if they do have it behind a privacy fence that's well kept and it's kept in a way where people are not having to look at it all the time, those people are paying for their property. And for me, it feels like I would be overstepping their rights. If it's out there in the middle of nowhere, and just everybody can just look in and just look at their yard and it's trashy, I get it. Let's do whatever we need to do, I guess. But to say that they have to have a shop and, not everybody has that kind of stuff. And I'm not saying I want a bunch of junk laying around the city, because I don't. I want it to be clean and I want things to happen here. But to me, it would almost work in a negative effect if we just keep telling people more and more and more what they can do and what they can't. And that's part of what would make people want to come here, is at least they would feel like their freedoms weren't being overstepped on. And I know that's probably crazy compared to what a lot of people think, but that's just the way I feel about it.
Well, that's why I suggested that one project car. I mean, certainly you shouldn't have a mountain of cars behind a private, grandma's car and grandpa's car, and yeah, that's my ex-wife's car, and just a number of cars. That's why I suggested that. Some guys do have a project car that they work on, and that was my, to do that, we'd have to bring that back, and me kind of define what that definition would be. But I do think that people do look at how clean your community is, how well kept it is, and this item, and particularly the next item, do go to that. So it's really all about the council setting policy as to what they'd like. Would they like the community to be cleaner in that way, or are they more of the opinion that people should do what they want on their property? Both are legitimate feelings, and out west here, Midwest, that second feeling, people should be able to do on their property what they like within reason, has deep roots.
So I got a quick question. Got a couple actually, but I don't see anywhere, it just hit me, but I don't see anywhere in here that this is pertaining only to residential zoned. Am I missing that?
Well, I mean, if in fact it is, if it is stored or parked in connection with a lawfully operated business, it's okay. That's really exception 3.
Oh, did I miss that?
So, I mean, if it's a commercial business and it's and it's lawful, and you're either fixing cars or painting cars or the like, then you of course can store vehicles on your property. I mean, if it's lawful, certainly you can.
Brian, the complaints that we're getting, is it behind a fence that is private, or is it just behind a chain link fence that, some of the examples that you showed us in the beginning, it was chain link fence that anyone could see driving down the road, and it was behind a screened fence, but yet it wasn't private at all. Anybody could see it, and, or even sometimes behind, bushes or things like that, where it wasn't an actual privacy fence. So I'm just curious, the complaints that you're seeing, are they actually behind a privacy fence that nobody can see, or are they just behind a fence or behind a house instead of in the front yard?
So I'm glad you actually asked that question. So it is kind of a mixed bag. The ones that I have been able to work, obviously, are only the ones that I can see. Whenever that's just kind of in the line of questioning, when somebody calls in and says they got a neighbor with a bunch of junk vehicles. First question in my mouth is, okay, where is it? If they say backyard, the next question is, okay, can I see it? Well, yeah, if you stand up on my porch and look over their fence, okay, yeah, no, we can't do that. Sorry. I can't change my elevation to help you out with that. So, I mean, to be honest, it is a mixed bag. And I don't have a statistic on there as far as what would be what, because the truth is, even if somebody called me and said, hey, this is in my neighbor's backyard, there is an expectation of privacy that we can't break that. And while I'm on that subject, the flip side to that, and I don't know if anyone else has entertained this thought, but if you look at that ordinance and the line that we're suggesting to remove, it is pretty thorough as to what you can and cannot place around your vehicle. And this is just me. If the city of wherever sent me a letter saying, hey, you've got a junk vehicle, you need to remove it or build and do it all to those specs, I would believe that could create as much of a financial hardship on anyone as simply placing it inside of a building. It's just, that's my 2 cents.
So along those lines, and kind of a follow-up to Jamie's question, let's say let's say this is passed, and then we have a car in a backyard with a privacy fence, and we determine, other than putting a notice on the front door, I mean, how do we enforce? I mean, can we actually take a tow truck in that backyard and pull it out of there?
No. So, sorry.
I was just going to say, and on top of that, how do you determine whether they're actually working on the car or it's just sitting there? Go ahead, Brian.
Okay, so just from beginning, the way the ordinance is written currently, basically we'll go out and, it has to meet one of the several criteria in there to even begin to question its operability. Usually I'll monitor it for 30 days, and if there's been no progress made at that point, I will send them a note or a letter notifying them that, hey, on this date, we found that this vehicle was on this property. There's been no improvement in its condition. At this time, we believe for these reasons, the vehicle is inoperable. Contact me so that way we can discuss this issue a little bit further. Typically, you get some sort of notification, and then we kind of just develop a plan from there. But to answer Commissioner Coldiron's question, the only time that I have ever towed a vehicle is if it is accessible from the driveway, because we do not want to put ourselves or a tow truck driver in the position to damage someone's property and the city be held liable for that by going into a backyard or anything like that.
Any other questions?
I mean, so I struggle with this whole thing in the just along those lines. There's many other things, but if we can't enforce it other than a fine, then are we really doing it? Let's say we got an elderly person that had a car in their backyard. They meant to be a project car. They can't get to it. Now they don't have the money, and we penalize them. And I don't mean I don't want the city clean. But we penalize them, and then now they have a fine on top of they got a car that they can't pay for to get out of there. I just trying to figure out that whole situation and how we get to the ends.
Okay, so there are several options out there, and a fine is the last thing that I want to do ever. Matter of fact, to be honest with you, as far as citations, in my 5 years of doing code enforcement, I've written 2, and neither one had to do with this. Now, a complaint is a different thing. If people just refuse to comply, and that means, no, I'm not getting rid of it. You can't make me. That's where we take it to the municipal judge, and then we let them enforce that. The enforcement part, as far as towing an inoperable vehicle, it's not to say that we can't remove it, but like I said, I won't go into a side or a backyard to do so, because you're just putting too much liability up. And there are several options. As far as I've spoke to all of the tow companies there in Perry, and with the exception of one, so I guess 2 out of 3 have a program available that if the people are willing to voluntarily sign over, then they will come remove the vehicle for them at no cost to the citizen.
Thank you for your work on this, Brian.
No problem.
Any other questions?
Brian, that's nice that you've been able to work that out with those companies. I think that's good on the city's part and good on those businesses to be able to add that service to our citizens.
Thank you.
I do have a question. I'm sorry. I do have a question. So it's no cost to them if they want to get rid of it, but what if they don't want to get rid of it?
Most people that I've ran into, when it comes to those, and it's not necessarily uncommon. Some people just need time to come to that conclusion. If they can put a plan in writing that says, like, hey, listen, I'll make progress, every 30 days I'll do this or that. We can work with them on the timeline. It's not a hard set rule that says that, you got 30 days or it's got to go. If we're seeing some significant progress made, then we're definitely going to work with people. This is more for the one that takes the junk vehicle that he's just stripping down, hides it in his backyard. And like Bryce said, it begins to deteriorate. It can cause a rodent harborage. And at certain points, they can even break down, leak stuff everywhere, and cause an environmental issue. That, if one of our goals is to, to grow Perry, I mean, you've got to think too, somebody wanting to move into the city of Perry may not necessarily want to move next to a scrap yard. And I'm not saying that we have that anywhere, but there are some pretty bad ones out there.
No, I agree. There are some bad ones out there. Thank you.
No problem.
All that, I do appreciate your work, Brian, and I do want to, I agree with what Mr. Morrill said here at the beginning, and that the timing may still be off in trying to get some of these things done. And I guess that being said, I think until we can get through a lot of this COVID stuff, I'd like to motion that we table it to give everybody the time that they need to do the work that needs to be done.
Is that a form of a motion there, Derek?
Yeah, I think I said I'd like to make the motion that we table it until we get past this COVID stuff and give people the timing that they need to clean things up.
Morrill will second it, and thank you, Brian. I appreciate your work as well.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Coldern,
Yes.
Bond,
Yes.
Gilbeck,
Yes.
Ahern, Marshall,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Morrill,
Yes.
Wines, Streller.
Yes.
Thank you.
Item 10, you may want to do the same thing with this, but when we read it in the record. Consider approval of ordinance number 2020-06 to the City Council of the City of Perry, amending Chapter 8, Article 4 of the Perry Municipal Code 2020 by amending the Section 8-412 entitled Open Storage of Materials, providing the side yards and backyards are subject to the open storage ordinance, and deleting the appropriate screening exception, providing for appeal or saving codification severability, effective date, penalty, and declaring an emergency. Brian, you want to talk about this real quick too, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So this one obviously would not be, like your vehicle, but like Bryce described earlier, it can expand anywhere from furniture in your backyard, like discarded furniture, to tires, which, the season that we're in, fill up with rain and stuff like that, and they can begin to cause a nuisance for mosquitoes. And it gets such down to the nitty gritty that even a trailer that's filled with trash is classified as open storage in the Perry Municipal Code. And so those things can't be addressed. And so when a complaint comes in for those things, this one is not protected by screening. It can just be out in the open as long as it's in your rear yard. Then you're compliant.
Can you say that last part one more time? If it's in your backyard, you're compliant, or?
Yeah, as it stands right now, yes, with no screening whatsoever.
So basically, you're just saying you can have stuff spread everywhere in your yard, right, Brian?
Yes.
Okay.
Before or after this is what?
Before.
Okay, that makes more sense.
And it just goes down to having some meat and getting people to clean up their yards.
No, and I get that. And there's plenty of places around here, the front porches are full of stuff and things that need to happen.
And I will say, I get more calls and complaints about agenda item 10 than 9. And you can imagine if you have great pride in your house, whether it's $100,000 or $50,000 or $150,000 or a $200,000 house, and you take pride in your property and you do the right things to have it a nice piece of property, and next door is somebody that does not have that kind of pride, now that hurts your property value. And we look at the community. Whenever we move someplace, we look at the community. And that, to me, is a negative, because you have a very nice piece of property next door to one that's not so nice. And which one takes over? Which one, in a couple of years, wins out, basically? Do you have a worse neighborhood, or do you have a more appealing, positive neighborhood? So I get more calls about number 10 than I do 9.
Larry, can I ask you a question along those lines?
Yes, sir.
Would you say number 10 more than mowing grass or less than mowing grass?
I think that it's in addition to, because they're both appearance factors. They're both things that we as a community would like to have. Well manicured lawns, items that are where they're supposed to be, put it that way.
And I get it. They're both similar, but would you say that we have a bigger issue with mowing grass than we do with the trash? I mean, I know I see both of them all over.
I think this time of year, grass is the issue, bigger than open storage, because everybody's got grass. Not everybody has open storage in there on the side or in the back.
It seems like we're trying to make some motions though to clean up our city. And unlike a car that maybe somebody's wanting to work on or hoping that they can get money to work on, cleaning up and getting rid of and disposing of trash isn't as much of a burden as trying to come up with money to fix up a car. Or maybe holding on to an older car, so that, you know, kids getting close to 20 or something like that project. But this to me doesn't seem as much as a burden to try to get rid of it and try to get us going in the right direction of cleaning up our town as number 9 on the agenda. I think, again, having trash sitting around, tires, we've talked about that with Brian. That's another spot for rodents and other things to be. So something to consider, but it doesn't seem that's as big of a burden on people to start cleaning up. Maybe a first step.
Brent, what was the deadline on this one?
It's July 1st. If you do want to adopt this one, you would cross out the words junk motor vehicle there in the 5th line based on your prior action. So junk motor vehicles would not be included in this. So just put delete marks through that. And then that would be consistent with what you did in the last item.
Would we have to come back, Bryce, and revisit this then when we get to the point that all this COVID stuff's behind us, would we have to come back and revisit this to put junk motor vehicles back in this ordinance?
No, it would be covered under the other section.
Okay. Now,
I mean, if you wanted to do something with the other section, it would be covered. It would be covered there. It was this junk motor vehicles was originally put in this section. We were probably teeing up both of the ordinances at the same time, hoping for one of them to get through. If you wanted to adopt this for consistency with your other action, you would cross out junk motor vehicles, and if you ever came back to approve the other one, there would be no effect.
Okay, let me ask you something. In this ordinance, say you have a junk motor vehicle that's not behind privacy fencing right now.
Yeah, then you can handle it under the other ordinance right now.
Under number 9 ordinance without it being changed?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
Well, now we tabled number 9 and we're discussing number 10. They're two different ordinances. So I guess I'm confused on why we would go up and scratch out 6 on 9 when we've already tabled it.
Oh, Mike, I'm just suggesting that we delete the language junk motor vehicle in this ordinance so that your action on the prior ordinance would be consistent. I don't want to adversely, you guys decided to table that. And so if you wanted to pass this, you would need to scratch junk motor vehicle out of this ordinance. Do you follow me?
Yeah, I do now.
I mean, currently we can enforce junk motor vehicles in your front yard, but if they're behind an appropriate screen, then they're safe.
That was
Okay.
that was my question. If
Yeah.
they're not behind appropriate screening right now,
We can take
address
action.
it.
We've had that ordinance for years.
Okay,
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure we weren't killing that item.
No.
If it's sitting out in your front yard or in your side yard or on the curb.
Taking that out there would have no effect.
Even just sitting in a backyard without a fence at all, that's still against this ordinance, correct?
Yes, yes.
Well, it wouldn't be this ordinance. It would be the other ordinance. Well, no. Let's. That's a good, because the word backyard doesn't appear in the other ordinance.
Well, that's the reason I was trying to get at this one. Do you cross the motor vehicle out of this one? I thought you would want to leave it in there.
Well, then it would be doing exactly what we're doing. I mean, right now, if it's in your backyard, Brian, what do you do? Junk motor vehicle in your backyard, screened or not screened, you don't do anything, right?
I may question the operability of it, but not in a violation form, no.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way it is right now. And you tabled that, and I think that's, appropriate based on what you tabled,
So I can have 4 cars in my backyard right now, no fence, just sitting back there, rotting away.
Yes. Yeah. That was the purpose of the other ordinance. Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
Well, I guess I'm still confused because and I'm sorry to be dragging this out. We talk things to death. Number 9 says the motor vehicle. Number 10 says open storage on side yards, backyards are subject to open storage. Now, that's where, and Bill and Jamie have brought up the same thing. That's where my confusion is, because I don't think you ought to have a junkyard in your backyard just because it's your backyard.
No.
Yeah. Then you would be in favor of this. You'd be in favor of this ordinance.
Yes.
What we're saying in the other ordinance, we're trying to say that, you can't have junk motor vehicles on your property, period. We're going to get rid of the appropriate screen. You can't have them. You can't have them anywhere. And I think that the council recognized that, that might be a project car. It might be grandpa's car. It's always somebody's car that has some deep meaning to those folks. In other cases, it's just cars that have failed and they don't own a property out of the country and they're not ready to crunch it and make $500 on it, and so they end up in their yards. That ordinance was seeking to remove the ability to put it behind a screen in the backyard. This one is kind of a crossover. Why is that language there? It's probably the timing of how we adopted these ordinances. But because we have a separate ordinance on it, it's probably not even appropriate in this ordinance. And I'm sure that Brian has never enforced this ordinance against a junk motor vehicle. You've used the other section. Is that not correct, Brian?
No, you are correct in saying that.
Yeah.
I would only work vehicle parts underneath this ordinance.
Yeah, only vehicle parts, right. Transmissions and tires and the like.
And to be clear, you're talking about down in section 8-412, section 1, or number 1, I believe you said line 5, it says, and trash and junk. Let's see. No, it was the line above that.
Yeah.
Junk motor vehicles and camper shells.
Cross that out because that's defined. And so this wouldn't go to junk motor vehicles. This would go to parts, transmissions, couches, refrigerators, dishwashers, washers, dryers, couches, which are supposed to be used inside the house, and then just trash. And if you pass this, it would say, no, you can't have that on your property. And they would have till July 1st to clean it up. We could even, if you think that people are hard pressed, we could even extend that date out a month, a month or two if you wanted. This one just really goes to the issue of keeping a clean community, I think, and would be one that, we would ask you to consider. Of course, you could put all those things inside of a building, on private property as it's set out.
I think if we want to beautify our community, that this is very vital to us.
I agree with the mayor as well. I do have a question, and it would come down to it later on any of it. Is there a place that people right now can specifically haul tires to get rid of them, Brian?
I have not. Go ahead.
I was just going to say it costs to get rid of tires.
Okay, can I speak? We actually have a permit at the street department, and we can take tire. Now, we can't take big like tractor tires, but we can take vehicle tires year round, and we do those. And we keep a permit. We have to renew it every year. We always advertise it at the time we do our spring cleanup, but we take them year round for that. And then when we get so many, we can have them hauled off. So that is always available at the street department.
Yeah, they have to be unmounted.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Okay. Thank you, Dixie.
You bet.
Thanks. I have some tires here to bring to you.
Perfect. Mike always wants to bring his tractor tires, but that's a no-no.
Brian, they're in the building right now, though, so don't worry.
I guess that spurred a couple of questions along that. Brian, you and I kind of talked about this a little bit in the past around another instance I'd heard of. But what if the tires are mounted? Let's say that along Bill's, Mr. Mayor's question earlier, let's say they have a building and they've got their project car in there and they've set their tires on the drive out front. They're mounted. They're just stacked nice and neat. I mean, what do you think on that? And then what about say like a tractor tire sandbox?
Both of those things I'm going to move right along. Those aren't violations.
Yeah, if the tire is a purpose, if the purpose is a sandbox and there's sand in there, I would not say it's open storage materials. They're using it in a function. Right, Brian?
Correct. I actually 2 weeks ago, a lady asked me if she could paint and decorate like a big spool that was used for wrapping up wire and use it as a yard decoration. I said, sure, as long as you maintain it and keep it in a kind of sanitary condition, have at it.
How do you handle the people that you may think are neighbors just complaining because they don't like their neighbor or things like that?
You put me on the spot there. Well, you kind of, you have to be able to analyze that. Every complaint I go out on, every complaint I register with iWork, even if I put it in as no violation. Sometimes, unfortunately, we don't enforce, well, not unfortunately. I do tell some people and it upsets them. We don't enforce ugly, and I understand that you may have, a 5-star front yard, but you can't expect everybody else to have that. As long as people aren't creating a public nuisance, you're going to have to learn to live with your neighbors.
Mayor, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve this ordinance with just a couple of modifications. So I'm going to make the motion to approve ordinance number 2020-06. I'd like to move the date of implementation to August 1 and remove the word junk motor vehicle. I think it's 8-412.
I'd like to second.
Marshall.
I hate to ask this, but is there any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Cold Iron.
Yes.
Bond.
Yes.
Dillbeck.
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
Marshall.
Yes.
White.
No.
Morrell,
Yes.
Wines. Is that a yes?
Yes.
Thank you. Streller.
Yes. Thank you, council.
I think Russ is the only one that didn't talk on that issue.
He may be asleep. I can't even see him anymore.
I vote no, but I don't get a vote.
Thank you, council.
I'm trying to create revenue for you, and that's what you want to act.
We need a motion on emergency.
Yes, we do. Thank you.
So moved.
In a second,
Second, Ahern.
roll call, please.
Coldern.
Yes.
Bond.
Yes.
Dilbeck.
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
Marshall.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Morrell.
Yes.
Wines.
Yes.
Streller.
Yes, thank you. Item number 11, consider approval of ordinance number 2020-08 for the City Council of the City of Perry, Oklahoma, amending Chapter 2, Article 4 of the Perry Municipal Code 2020 by amendment of Section 2-409 entitled Utility Credit to Certain Personnel, providing that the phase located within the corporate limits of the City of Perry is substituted for the phrase served by the City of Perry Utility Service, providing for employees must be served by the City of Perry Utility Service for ordinance in order to receive the utility credit, provided for repeal or savings codification, severability, and declaring emergency. Council, what this is Dixie, you may help me. Is it 20 years I sit here? If you've put in 20 years with the City of Perry, a part of your retirement package is you get $80 a month credit on your utility bill. And the problem is the way that the ordinance reads now is you have to be inside the city limits to receive that. So after reviewing this, we realized that there's an employee or two that lives outside the city limits, but they're still on City of Perry utilities. And we've been giving them that credit anyway. And so we just want to clean up our ordinance and make sure that it says that as long as they're on City of Perry utilities, whether they're in the city limits or not, they can still get that credit, but only if they're on the City of Perry utilities.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second, Wines.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Coldern.
Yes.
Bond.
Yes.
Dilbeck.
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
Marshall.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Morrell.
Yes.
Wines.
Yes.
Streller.
Yes, thank you. Item number 12 is consider approval.
Emergency. Bill, we need
I'm
emer-
sorry. Yeah, we need a motion on emergency. Thank you, DC.
So moved.
Second.
Dilbeck.
I would never get in on time.
Roll call, please, Dixie.
Coldern.
Yes.
Bond.
Yes.
Dilbeck.
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
Marshall.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Morrell.
Yes.
Wines.
Yes.
Streller.
Yes. All right. Thank you. Item 12, consider approval of resolution number 2020-05 of the City Council of the City of Perry, Oklahoma, authorizing the Oklahoma Municipal Insurance Company, OMAG, to distribute the escrow account funds to the next coverage year's premium owed for the continuing workers' compensation insurance coverage. This is pretty self-explanatory. There is an escrow account that has some funds, and we want them to be rolled over to our premium for next year.
In the past, I've always just recommended that we go ahead and roll these dollars over, apply it to the premiums. That way we don't have to write a second check. It's just easier on us overall.
Motion to approve. Morrell.
Coldern, second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Coldern.
Yes.
Bond.
Yes.
Dilbeck.
Yes.
Ahern.
Yes.
Marshall.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Morrell.
Yes.
Wines.
Yes.
Streller.
Yes, thank you. Item 13, new business. Is there any new business that needs to come before the council this evening? Seeing none, we will move to item 14. Bryce, before I read this in the record, or Tyson, how are we going to do? Is everybody just going to stay? We'll kick everybody else off, executive session?
Yes. Yes, and I would ask that Dixie stay.
Yes, correct. All right. And Larry can stay too, correct, Bryce?
Well, of course, Larry can stay, but
okay.
Normally the city clerk doesn't stay, but she should stay.
All right. All right. Item 14, consider convening the executive session to discuss the appraisal of interest and the purchase of certain interest in real property, permanent and temporary flowage easement related to the Upper Black Bears watershed project pursuant to Title 25, Section 307B3 of the Oklahoma Statute of Amendment.
Motion to convene into executive session. Morrill.
Wait a second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Coldern,
Yes.
Bond,
Yes.
Dilbeck,
Yes.
Ahern,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Morrill,
Yes.
Wines,
Yes.
Streller.
Yes. All right. Item number 15, reconvening the regular session, please.
So moved.
Second, Marshall.
Roll call, please, Dixie.
Colern,
Yes.
Bond,
Yes.
Dilbeck,
Yes.
Ahern,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Morrill,
Yes.
Wines,
Yes.
Streller.
Yes, thank you. Item 16, take any action with respects to executive session. Seeing none, we'll move to 17, a motion on adjournment, please.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Roll call when you're ready, Dixie.
Colern,
Yes.
Bond,
Yes.
Dilbeck,
Yes.
Ahern,
Yes.
Marshall,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Morrill,
Yes.
Wines,
Yes.
Streller.
Yes. Thank you, council. Have a good evening.